Hey there, everybody. Welcome to our reaction and review for Shrinking Season 1, Episode 8. Boop. What a great
No.
what a great name for an episode. Like really, how we have all booped our dogs on multiple occasions. Just boop, like right on the nose.
It's true, but in this case, boop means taking a bit of control over yourself and taking something away from somebody to change how somebody's acting. And that seems to be really the theme of this episode.
Jimmy gives this advice to Grace pretty early on in it, and he's just like, you know what? I'm going to adapt this to other things that are going on in my life
Mhm.
with Brian. Brian ain't giving me what I want. I'm not getting to be the efficient just because he is so upset that I barfed all over the place and completely ruined his planned proposal.
Boop.
Yeah, that is right. He's taken that stand. No, this episode I think has a lot of important emotional development for a lot of characters. Like I don't think there's anything in here that's going to leave anybody's jaw hanging on the ground, but at the same time it doesn't really need that. We just need to get to a place where we sort of understand better who these people are and why they're doing some of the things that they're doing.
But before we get into all that, be sure to follow us over on Patreon every Monday night. We're talking about shrinking. I mean, we are getting close to the end of the season. There's lots still to talk about over there. So you can hit that link in our description and join our Patreon. Also, subscribe to our channel. We have all kinds of cool stuff going on here right now. We have Only Murders in the Building is on right now. We
Yeah.
have Ahsoka has just started up. Justified is like wrapping up. What We Do in the Shadows. There's all kinds of great stuff here.
Okay, let's just start things off with what is going on with Jimmy, who is in his feelings. Jimmy's always in his feelings for one thing or another, but I think he is especially feeling them throughout this episode because I think he's really struggling with this idea of where is my place in this sort of larger friend group and in life?
Mhm.
Like, does my daughter rely on me for anything? Does she take me seriously? Does my best friend take me seriously? Which Jimmy does have to remember, by the way, that he basically ghosted Brian for like a year. It's not that crazy that Brian wouldn't want him to be an efficient at this point.
Yeah, I mean, Jimmy, I understand him being upset that, a deal that they made years back
Yeah.
where Brian, stood up for him and Tia at their wedding. It's different now. It's like making a deal with your best friend that it's like, "Oh yeah, we're going to do this for each other, later on in life," but they get married younger and now all of a sudden we're here where it's like Jimmy has lost his wife. He, was like, "Oh, sure, I'll host this engagement party for you." And he completely blew it. Like
Mhm.
this most romantic moment for Brian and Charlie. And it turned into that where, yeah, Charlie still said yes and they're moving forward. But at that point, they're like, if this just happened at the engagement party, like what's going to happen at the wedding? Like our wedding is the most important day of our lives. We're giving our vows to each other. Brian's not wrong to be like, I just don't feel okay with it. I just watched what happened to you. Not only do I not want that to happen to me and my future husband on, we no
Yeah.
take backs on that. We
Yeah.
get married one time and that's it. This is the one time. But also on the other hand, I think there's a part of Brian that doesn't want to put Jimmy through that. That's like, maybe I asked for too much to be having this at his place with what was going on, with everything that he's feeling, because clearly he didn't handle it very well. So I don't want to put Jimmy in that situation a second time, but like it's a million times worse.
That is exactly it. Like I feel it is an exact combination of these two different things. And Brian's not punching Jimmy in the face. He's not like doing
No.
anything that is a great offense to him. I think the thing that Jimmy could do that would make Brian feel more comfortable in all of this is get better, but get better at his own time. Get better at his own pace. Don't try to fake it. Don't try to pretend that everything is okay. Because I think what Brian took away from that engagement party is just that he's not really ready for a lot of things yet. And that's okay. But he's still at the point where seeing a lot of these people that he was, friends with when he was with Tia, who are now all coming back. It's rushing all these memories back. And a lot of these people, presumably, would also be at the wedding. And if Brian really does want to rush this wedding through and it seems like he wants to get married as soon as possible,
Mhm.
he's not going to be ready in that amount of time. And I think to ask him to do that is really unfair. Now, if you're Jimmy, and I think this is the case with anybody, as if something like this happens where you've been really excited about this thing and you really feel like you can do it, and then somebody takes it away from you, you're just like, how dare you, you jerk, you terrible person. You get so caught up in the heat of the moment in your feelings you don't even want to imagine that this person may be looking out for you.
Absolutely. I can see why Jimmy is as upset as he is. But there also has to be a little bit of sort of self-realization with it to be like, "Oh, okay, yeah, I did just do this to his engagement party. Maybe I'm not ready for this." And maybe he'll get there, but,
Yeah.
you're gonna have your immediate reaction. Paul was even there with him to just be like, "Hey, if you're mad now, yeah, you won't be mad later, but if you're mad now, say that you're mad now. Like, don't just be like, oh, okay, keep drinking my beer and hanging it like everything is okay when it's not. You have to deal with things as they're happening. And then you can later deal with, okay, you know what? You were actually right. I'm not ready for this."
He kind of slowly starts to realize this throughout the episode. I mean, it brings us to the big moment at the end of this with Alice, where he just decides, okay, Alice, you know what? You're grounded. And yes, I was a really bad father for a long period of time, and you were effectively taking care of me, but I'm going to step back into this father role now. I pay for the house, I pay for the bills, all of these other things. You can't just do whatever you want and go off and hang out with some college guy and pretend you're older than you are and cause all these other sort of problems. He wants to be a father figure again, and good for him. Does Alice want to accept that? No, and understandably so, given everything that has happened.
Yeah. Jimmy was, emotionally unavailable for a year. Alice
Yeah.
was basically just taking care of herself and then getting taken care of by the neighbor. Like, he just wasn't there. And I understand that this is a situation where, for her, she actually was doing pretty well considering, she kept up her grade. She still was going to school time. She had been invited to a bunch of parties and she was like, no, like things could go sideways. I'm not there. I have enough on my plate. I can't really deal with it. This is the first time that she's kind of acted out where it was like, I don't have my dad, I don't have Liz as much anymore. I depend on Paul for me to go and have these talks. He's made this a safe space for me where he's like, yeah, this is the place that you can come and vent. But because Paul has his own stuff going on, he ends up lashing out at her too, where she's just like, cool, I don't have anybody. All right. If all the adults in my life are going to act like this, me too. Like, why not? Why am I, stepping up as the adult when all the other adults are just like, woo, we're eating fun dip. Like, it's just kind of ridiculous. And I understand why she did what she did, where she's like, yeah, you know what? I'm going to go meet up with this guy and I'm going to go to his room and like, what are you going to do about it? You guys are all acting like this too. But then you have this wonderful scene where you've got like Brian, Jimmy, Paul, boom, boom, boom on the door. It's just like, this is so great. I would be really intimidated. Where they go and they scoop her up, bring her home. And yeah, we have this conversation with Jimmy and Alice where he's just like, yeah, you're grounded for 2 months. I was just like, 2 months? That seems like an awfully long time for A, what she did, but B, also just you have a daughter that hasn't stepped out of line during a time that was so crazy for her that it wouldn't be like unreasonable for her to be like, you know what? I can't handle things. So I'm not handling things and I'm acting out, but that never happened. And now the one time that she is acting out, 2 months? I was shocked when he was like 2 months. I was like, a month. Okay, maybe a month, a couple weeks, like something that's enough for her to get back in the line. But that's a really long time.
Couple weeks. That's where I would have landed with all of it. Now, I don't know how much Jimmy even thought about this before he said it. I think he probably was just like, in the moment, he's like, I got this. I can do this. I'm just going to say whatever comes into my mind. And he says 2 months, which is this ridiculously long period of time.
Yeah, like, I understand that he wants to step back into that role where Alice is like, "Why are you, acting like this now?" sort of thing, and, "Mom would never do this," and he's just like, "Oh, you know that she absolutely would have grounded you, you know that that's it,"
Yeah.
and then we get the teenager, "I hate you," and his response was great, "Well, I love you," and that's exactly why he's doing this.
Yeah, that's the really defining moment. Like, of course he's gonna say this. Of course he wants to find a way still to connect with her. And I think him
Mhm.
saying "I love you," it is all of this is a step in the right direction. But
Yeah.
I think he still has to continue to take ownership of why a lot of this happened. And a big part of it is he was with Gabby in Tia's bed
Mhm.
at a time in which a lot of things were happening. He pretended like it didn't happen at first. Him and Gabby did that whole charade. They made all of this so much worse for themselves than they could have been had they approached all of it in a really different fashion. Even the way in which they're explaining it, like Auntie Gabby, or was it Aunt Gabby, or what? All of
Auntie
it was
Gabby, oh my
it was
goodness.
so uncomfortable. And so, yeah, Alice is gonna feel weird after. It's just that is inevitable.
Yeah, that's why for me, like, 2 months was a really long time. It's just like a lot has dropped on her. Now, yeah, her mom's best friend and her dad are hooking up. Like, she even said it too, which is these two keep saying it meant nothing. It's nothing. It's
Yep.
nothing. It's nothing. Like, that somehow makes it better. And Alice is like, oh, cool. So you guys did this and it means nothing. It was for no real gain. It's nothing. Like, cool, you've hurt me, you hurt mom sort of
Yep.
thing for nothing. Like, it should have meant something kind of thing.
I wonder if they had explained it more. Well, it's a hard thing to do. It's obviously a hard thing to talk about with someone like Alice, where you do just say we're both in a very emotional, vulnerable spot where we're trying to connect with somebody because we've both gone. I don't know if you can say all this. There's no,
They're therapists. Like,
yeah,
for two therapists, their communication is really kind of garbage sometimes.
they can help their patients. They just can't help themselves. Like, that seems to be like the one line summary of this show in a lot of different ways. Now, Paul, let's just have a brief. Harrison Ford's firing on all cylinders in this episode. Was this the first time that you think he has ever had fun dip?
No.
He does not look like a fun dip man. I look like somebody who has had a lot of fun dip. Like,
You absolutely have had a lot of Fun Dip. Every Christmas, there's Fun Dip in your stocking. You love Fun Dip.
yeah, let me just say there are multiple varieties of fun dip. I never even knew this, but in the past few years, I have discovered, thanks in part to Jess and her fun dip gifts, there is sour fun dip. There are other varieties. That one that turns your tongue a different color when you lick too much of it. That is a recipe for disaster. But I loved everything with him in the fun dip. I loved him being like "Rah," with all of it at the end because that is the thing that happens. I loved him standing outside the college student's door and just being like, I'm just gonna stand here for a while and freak him out. If Harrison Ford did that to me, I would open the window and run away. I'm not even staying in the vicinity. You can just take whatever is in my room, Harrison Ford.
And it was good to see Paul take some responsibility for what happened with Alice, that he, felt partially responsible because he did create a safe space for her to talk about anything she wanted. And then
Yeah.
because he was going on with his own stuff with Meg, Meg is not accepting his calls right now. She's too mad that he took it out in it's not a session, but their time together. So it was good to see that at least he's taking responsibility for his part where he was like, this happened.
How can someone be so self-aware and yet so stubborn at the same
I
time?
know.
Like Paula knows all of his problems. Paul knows that he wasn't a great father to Meg all the time. Paul knows that he shouldn't have been driving. He knows all these different things, and yet he refuses to do something about them a lot of the time. It's good that he did something Here, I hope
Mhm.
he can continue to be like, you know what? I do need to do something with Meg to improve this relationship, even if she's going to be mad at me about not wanting to move. Like I still don't see a guy like Paul being willing to move anytime soon. He's just way too set in his ways.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, let's talk about Gabby.
Oh, the art party.
Oh, the art party. It's a story that I think doesn't get spoken about a lot. I know I say that a lot in these videos, but Shrinking's a really special show for that reason, that it talks about in a funny way, but still brings these subjects to the table that no one else really does, of how complicated things can be. And a marriage breaking up where it's kind of like, you've got her husband was really dealing with addiction and it was really affecting their marriage, and things were just so bad that it broke apart. I think a lot of people, after a break apart of a marriage, when you see the partner being the best version of themselves, you always self-reflect, where you're just like, why couldn't that person be there with me? Did I not put in enough to it? Am I not good enough to have this version of them? Like, what was I doing wrong that I got the worst version of Nico? And now that he's not with me, he's the best version of himself. That has to be because he was with me. And there was a lot of that reflecting back on her at that art party.
Yeah, and I felt really bad for Gabby. Like, I think what probably happened here with Nico is he was so devastated about what was happening to his marriage that at the end of all of it, when it all fell apart, that was probably the big wake up call for him, that I've lost one of the things that I care about the most. How can I try to fix some element of myself? But her having to then also see him with someone else at that party, where I think she assumed that he was just going to be some sort of insecure artist who needed her to be there
Mhm.
to give him that little bit of security and reassurance. But not only was he doing okay, but he was in some other sort of relationship, and it probably feels very, very soon to her. And I think she's probably then being like, I came here for this guy. I wanted to be here for this guy. He is now moving forward in a way that I am not. Like, what is this say about me? What's wrong with me? And because she's a therapist, once again, I think she probably thinks I should be able to give myself the answers, but I can't.
Yeah, and it's really difficult when you're in it, like at the end of a marriage when it's going really sideways, and you're in a rut. That's typically how it works. By the time you're getting to the end of it, it's like the same circle is happening again and again and again, and you're just unable to get out of it because you're in it and you're comfortable in the cycle of, poop, and it's just going that way that you can't see clearly because you're in that comfort of misery. But I think that because Gabby is just now watching him thrive, I think it's just the way that it can be, where you just are like, wow, look at me. Like, what happened? I'm unable to really kind of move on. Did I hold him back? You feel guilt,
Yeah.
even if you shouldn't.
Yeah. And that's the way people think. And that's something she's going to have to wrestle with a lot, I think, over the next couple of episodes, and also figure out who is the person that I can really talk to about a lot of this, because you have to open up. You can't have these
Jimmy, Jimmy,
Jimmy.
Jimmy.
Like, I want it to be Jimmy too. I want them to really establish even more of an emotional connection. Like, they certainly have already had a physical one, but more of an emotional one from here, and sort of just like build this out, because they can be there for each other, I
Mhm.
think, even beyond what they currently think.
Absolutely. There's a foundation of friendship there. They're colleagues. They've known each other a really long time. I think it'll help both of them.
Well, we will be here to continue to look at the rest of season one. We're not that far from the end, guys. There's only a
No.
tiny handful of episodes left, and then we get to the finale, and we all wonder where in the world this is going from there.
Except for you, because you've seen it. I just don't.
I am pretending like I am in the dark. I know what's happened. No, it's
I'm totally in the dark. I have no idea
no.
how this is going to end. All I know is that Matt has said that it is just an excellent end to the season. Is one of the
Yeah.
best episodes.
Yeah, I will just say this without giving anything away. It's been fun to rewatch it and sort of see certain moments play out when you kind of know what's happening and oh, that makes more sense now. So it's been a really fun rewatch. If you have watched it already, watch it again. There is some payoff there. But be sure to join our Patreon. We are discussing shrinking on our live stream every Monday night.
Mhm.
Thank you to everyone who has joined. We really appreciate it. We'll see you here next time.